Take a war-weary Russia that has been forced to move air defenses from its own territory into Ukraine. Add a dash of one of Ukraine's most elite units and the drones that they deploy. What do you get from this simple recipe? The destruction of Russia's air defenses throughout 2025. Ukraine crushed a staggering $4 billion worth of Russia's air defenses in just 12 months, breaking apart Vladimir Putin's air shield in the process. With its air defenses failing to stop the very weapons that they're supposed to destroy, yet more deep strikes into Russia are imminent. On January 19th, Business Insider reported that Ukraine's elite Alpha unit, which is part of the Security Service of Ukraine, or SBU, had absolutely ransacked Russia's air defenses throughout 2025. Drone after drone flew into Russian territory and occupied Ukraine, along with a growing number of long-range missiles to destroy a very specific type of target. It wasn't the usual command centers, refineries, or logistical nodes that the Alpha unit targeted. It was air defenses. And this single unit destroyed $4 billion worth of Russian air defense systems and radars in 2025. The claim was published by the SBU on its Telegram channel, where it said that the Alpha unit had taken a massive bite out of Russia's sprawling network of air defenses during the previous 12 months. Long-range strikes by Special Air Forces of the Alpha Special Operations Center of the Security Service of Ukraine inflict significant losses on key elements of the Russian Federation's echeloned air defense system. The total cost of destroyed and disabled enemy air defense assets over the past year is estimated at approximately $4 billion, the SBU said. The Alpha unit didn't discriminate with these strikes. If it was Russian and used for air defense, it was due for a visit from drones in a campaign that is only going to grow more intense as we move into 2026. Keep watching the video and you'll discover what Ukraine has in store for Russia on the drone front, along with a clever trick that Ukraine has used that allows it to carry out drone strikes at ranges that seem as though they should be impossible. As for what the Alpha unit destroyed during 2025, the list amounts to a militaristic who's who of the air defense systems that Russia deploys in Ukraine and on its own territory. Euromaidan Press provided a good rundown on January 19th, noting that Russia's S-300, S-350, and S-400 set of long-range and intermediate air defense systems were a particular target. The S-300 has around 24 variants, each with its own range and use cases, though none seem capable of stopping the Alpha unit from doing its work. S-400s have a range of around 400 kilometers, or about 248 miles, and are among Russia's most advanced air defense systems as they can tackle cruise and ballistic missiles along with aircraft. Some of those still went down, and so did some S-350 units, which offer intermediate-range air defenses that cover distances between 10 and 120 kilometers, or 6.2 and 74.5 miles. Again, these systems fell to Alpha unit strikes, and we're just getting started. Also among the shattered remains of Russia's $4 billion of lost air defenses are various intermediate and short-range systems, including Buk, Tor, and Pantsir air defenses. The latter is used by Russia for point defense, meaning they're placed in regions that Russia believes will be vulnerable to aerial assaults. Tor air defense systems attack planes, drones, missiles, and choppers from short range, while Buk air defenses are supposed to do the same at intermediate range with their surface-to-air missiles. The Alpha unit had answers for all of these air defenses as its drones carved through them at a ridiculous rate during 2025. But by now you may have noticed that something is missing. It's all well and good destroying the platforms that rattle off missiles in the direction of whatever Ukraine sends Russia's way. No platforms mean no defenses, but taking out the platforms themselves isn't all that the Alpha unit should be doing. The radar systems that feed targeting data into these platforms also need to be dealt with, or Russia could just install new air defenses while maintaining the systems that warn it of impending Ukrainian strikes. The Alpha unit is a long way ahead of you. Radar systems were also among its many targets in 2025, and boy did the Alpha unit take out a lot of different types of Russian radars in 2025. Nebo-M and Nebo-U radars were some of the headline losses for Russia. These multi-function radars are integrated directly into air defense systems, and they're supposedly capable of tracking incoming targets from distances up to 600 kilometers, or about 372 miles away. These Nebo radars are likely candidates for integration with Russia's S-300 and S-400 systems, as are the podlets that the Alpha unit also claimed in 2025. These three-coordinate radar systems also provide targeting data to Russia's long-range air defense platforms, and they come with a very specific claim that they can detect very low-flying objects, such as drones. Detect they may be able to do, destroy, not so much. At least the air defenses linked to these podlets proved useless against the Alpha unit used to destroy them throughout 2025. More radar systems fell to the unit last year, including niobium 3 coordinate radar systems that can supposedly track targets at ranges between 5 and 500 kilometers, or 3.1 and 310 miles. The Alpha unit also destroyed Castor 2E2 systems that are used to control airspace and ID incoming targets, along with a pair of 3 coordinate radar systems named the Gamma D and Protivnik GE. What we see in all of this destruction is a combination of Ukraine removing some of Russia's most important weapons from the battlefield as it yanks out the eyes that those weapons need to even stand a chance of hitting their targets. Ukraine isn't making it up for propaganda purposes here. As Militani reported in its own article covering what the Alpha unit spent 2025 doing, the SBU has revealed previously unpublished footage that proves that the unit hit the targets that it claims to have hit. In that footage, we see several radar systems being destroyed, including some additions to the Alpha unit list that weren't shared by the SBU. A pair of 9S-32 guidance radars, which are used by Russia's S-300V, are seen getting hit by drones. So are 4 92N6E guidance radars and 1 96L6E radar station, all of which are used by the S-400. There's also confirmation provided for the Buk, Tor, and Pantsir strikes, showing that they did indeed happen, and Ukraine has the proof. And as if things couldn't get any worse for Russia, it's not like the Alpha unit was the only one that was tearing through Russian air defenses in 2025. As Euromaidan Press points out, there were plenty of other units doing this type of work. Ukraine's General Intelligence Unit, or HUR, took part in strikes against Russia's air defenses, for instance. In December, Ukraine's 15th Separate Artillery Reconnaissance Brigade, also known as Black Forest, destroyed a pair of S-400 launchers in Belgorod by using strike drones to attack the launchers while they were being repositioned. There isn't going to be any respite for Russia's battered air defenses in 2026 either. On just the second day of the year, Militani reported that the Asgard First-Person View, or FPV, drone group of Ukraine's 412th Unmanned Systems Brigade, or Nemesis Brigade, had gone on a tear by taking out an S-350, along with self-propelled launchers for Buk and Tor air defenses, all seemingly in the Donetsk region. That's a whole lot of information that we've just thrown at you in a short span of time, but we can summarize it all pretty easily. Russia's air defenses, both inside Russia and in occupied Ukraine, are burning. That means two very important things. First, more Ukrainian deep strikes are imminent, as you'll discover if you continue watching the video. And second, those strikes are imminent because Ukraine's Alpha unit, along with the many others that spent 2025 tackling Russia's air defenses, has done the very important job of opening safe corridors in the skies that Ukraine's drones, missiles, and perhaps even its aircraft can travel in 2026. The loss of all of these air defense systems, many of which come with hefty price tags, leaves Russia vulnerable. A single S-400 battalion costs Russia $200 million to make, according to Newsweek. And Russia has in the past sold these S-400 batteries for about $500 million. You can see how the constant destruction of these and other air defense systems throughout 2025 could add up to $4 billion, and these costs matter massively to Putin. Why? Well, Russia wants to replace every air defense system or radar that Ukraine destroys. Russia's problem is that it often can't replace these systems, especially not at the pace needed. And even when it does, it has to spend enormous amounts of cash to make those replacements happen. So what Russia often ends up doing is either transferring air defenses from other locations to the places that Ukraine hits, or it just doesn't replace the shattered air defenses at all. Either way, somewhere becomes vulnerable because of a lack of air defenses, which leads to the creation of safe corridors. The existence of these corridors matters because of how much air defense, as a concept, matters to Russia. On its own territory, a lack of air defenses makes it easier for Ukraine to conduct deep strikes, as you'll learn in a few minutes. But Russia also deploys massive numbers of air defense systems inside Ukraine, and the loss of these systems is just as damaging. As Business Insider points out, large breakthroughs such as those required by Russia to take key Ukrainian settlements require air cover. Without that cover, assaults are disrupted, tanks get destroyed, command and control centers are crippled by drone and missile strikes. Essentially, everything that Russia needs to have behind the combat lines that allows it to organize and conduct its attacks against Ukraine's positions needs to be guarded by air defenses. If these various logistical and weaponry nodes aren't protected, they become vulnerable, leading to Russia's assaults faltering. Air defenses are also important on the front lines of the conflict. A little bit of logic makes it easy to see why. Ukraine has F-16s, drones, missiles, and a host of other weapons that it can use to attack Russia's forces on the combat lines. Russia can't allow Ukraine to use those weapons with impunity. If it does, then the troops that Putin needs to take key Ukrainian positions will be pelted 24 hours a day with munitions that tear them to pieces. That brings us back to the safe corridors. What we're starting to see now, and we'll see more of in 2026, is Ukraine taking advantage of the outcome of its consistent whittling away at Russia's air defenses. The corridors are now open, and Russia is going to have a difficult time closing them to Ukraine's missiles and drones. The impact of Russia losing so many of its air defense platforms had already started to manifest during the first few months of 2025. Toward the end of April of that year, the National Security Journal reported that Russia was already in the process of moving more of its air defenses to Crimea, albeit in a disorganized and uncoordinated way. That lack of organization suggests panic, and Russia was panicking because Ukraine had been picking apart Crimean air defenses to enable further attacks on the occupied peninsula. Russia was already rushing to plug those gaps by April 2025, and in doing so, it was making other areas that it previously defended more vulnerable. Add Ukraine's $4 billion worth of strikes against Russian air defenses into that mix, and you get a compounding set of issues. Russia loses air defenses. It replaces those defenses by using systems installed elsewhere. Yet more defenses get destroyed, leading to the creation of even more safe corridors. Russia's hysterical responses to the loss of its air defense systems are made worse by the fact that even those that it has installed aren't always as useful as they could be. According to a December 13th Military report, Ukraine has been conducting attacks against Russia's anti-air missile storage facilities. When combined with Western sanctions that make it harder for Russia to get its hands on imported components and microelectronics, these attacks are resulting in missile shortages. Russia is trying to tackle the problem by delaying the export of air defense missiles that it's promised to countries that uses the systems that Russia builds, such as India. But those delays only further demonstrate that Russia has an emerging air defense missile crisis that is going to lead to the creation of even more, perhaps unexpected, safe corridors for Ukraine's drones and missiles. All of this has gone according to Ukraine's plan. That plan has been repeated every time that Ukraine carries out any strike against Russian equipment, logistics, or oil. United 24 Media provides the perfect description of that plan in its own report on the Alpha Unit's 2025 feat, noting that the unit's attacks on Russian air defenses are part of a broader campaign to weaken Russia's military infrastructure, both in the occupied territories and everywhere beyond the front lines. The cracks in Putin's war machine were already starting to show long before 2025. The Alpha Unit spent the entire year blowing many of those cracks wide open. And that brings us to something we mentioned earlier in the video. The whole point of Ukraine's targeting of Russia's air defenses was to create safe aerial corridors to make deep strikes easier to conduct. 2026 is going to be the year when Ukraine takes full advantage of the gaps in Russia's defense